So yeah, the story of this game is that I got really fixated on this patch because the combo tiles look very nice and this is a very workable scavenger spot. You crush a lot of this iron here, get up to a ripping start, and you do just fine. Of course, I take it for what, 30,000? 32? 34. Yeah, that's just way too much. Because this, where PB eventually found, is perfectly viable as well. In any case, one reason why that doesn't end up backfiring too much on me, carbon starts expensive, again, iron was expensive, and there's a lot of money I could grab off that quickly. So I'm moving along to HQ3 quite soon. So having everything clustered doesn't hurt me all that much, since the first freeze won't stop me from going anywhere. PB on the other hand, well, he's got what he's got. We both make a big push into the silicon. This is a glass colony, so we wanted to have that secured. Glass already rising. What else PB does here? Right, water and aluminum, which leaves him with one lone tile. That's the big thing here. I don't think there's any reason for him to go after this water. It prevents him from going into a pair of production here, which really would have helped him along. Because in very short order I freeze this out, and then he's really stuck for a while. Yep. I have double aluminum down, just gathering up a ton of aluminum and then eventually preparing for a glass transition. I'm also really just moving towards the next upgrade fairly quickly. And buying up a bit of iron since I've frozen out his iron. PB had never had a stockpile of iron since he was running even on iron production and consumption, so I could go ahead and do that. And the single steel mill was never going to do anything as a result. Scraps out of that goes into a solar panel. Well, wind and then solar. I don't react to this price spike in carbon fast enough. I could have gotten a bit of money off of that, but just a bit slow. It's okay though. At this point, power has crept up to a decent level and it's going to be a major concern for me. So I go ahead and move into the wind over there to go along with this glass. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I think PB is moving towards the upgrade quickly enough that I can't really afford to skip power and go into something like food and really try to push HQ4 quickly. I think that might have backfired a bit, but it was an option to think about. This iron auction is actually pretty huge, as it basically prevents me from chain freezing this area and keeping him shut down that way. I probably should have bid more for it, but it felt like I didn't really have a great use for that tile, and I was starting to be concerned about the debt. I still probably could have pushed to a couple more. Like letting it go for 16 or 20 I think would have been more fair. 12k definitely. Because this definitely helps PB a lot. And in the long term it gets connected up and just a significant boon for him. And yeah, it was probably also a mistake gooning my wind instead of going ahead and freezing out his steel again. Because he wasn't doing anything that was going to help push him along. If I freeze this out again, he gets stuck at HQ2 longer, and then even if he counter freezes my wind, that's basically slowing him down even more, and I can kind of afford to stall a bit, because I still have other stuff going on. And it all works out very poorly for me in the end because of this power surplus. Without the surplus, I probably can get this adrenaline boost out. I can take a real advantage off power instead of kind of just spinning my wheels. That's okay though. I forget why I don't upgrade immediately here. I guess because I want to put down food and that's going to be expensive. This is poor building placement. This puts it too close to my glass, too close to my carbon. I could have built it out over here or out here, and that would have protected myself a bit more. Just not playing around the EMPs properly.
The black market is open for business.
Yeah. This did not need to happen at all.
Let the bidding begin.
Slant drilling, I let this go for 20k. The thinking is that it doesn't really do much to help me, and it doesn't do much for PB either. It would have been a lot more carbon in my pocket, it would have been a lot. Mostly just more carbon in my pocket. It would have been a bit less silicon for PB. Would have made his waters a bit weaker. I don't think this 20k slant drilling made a major difference, but it's potentially something I could have pushed to 28. Anyway, there's that move into double aluminum, gathering up all the aluminum I need for HQ5 before moving into these reactors. Just a little thing there. I'm not sure if it was really worth the delay quite so much, but yeah, I don't think it was a major mistake either way. Yeah, I have a real lead at this point. Just didn't do a good job this game with a lot of things.
The black market is online.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Might be an argument I could have dropped it on the food more heavily or the reactors more heavily, but not a big deal. The next EMP is a big deal. With the goon bounce coming. And there is a good argument I should have been dropping spies all over the place before dropping the next EMP, but I just wasn't thinking about the danger of the goon bounce.
The black market is open for business.
Because really at this point I am ahead by enough that I'm starting to feel a bit complacent, and that's kind of bad, to put it lightly. Also worth noting that, well, this probably isn't necessary at all. Yeah, I can't sustain double triangle without the third water pump, but there's a very real argument for looking at optimizations to deal with that instead. Prices are quite high, so optimization is a pretty reasonable thing to be doing. Again, did not think it was going to be necessary. If I had noticed Cook the Books properly, I'd play this out very differently, I think. Because this whole time I expect PB to fall into a ton of debt and have serious issues. He has very little power down, power starting to creep up. I can do things like boost out my power. Also, this was a problem that I didn't recognize all this other power he had online. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. Because he actually doesn't have all that much debt at this point. I have no idea why I wasn't trying to push for the late game more. I think, well, okay, well, part of it's certainly that before this upgrade, Pbhead had a ton of cash, so I think I was desperately trying to survive. I was very concerned that he would push for a majority buy on me. That was it. What could I have done about that, though? Obviously, the bounce DMP is the biggest single thing in that whole chain of events. If I've managed to freeze him out instead of getting frozen out, well, then I don't have to worry about this majority buy quite so much. But I think, in the end, I still probably overhyped the danger of the majority buy in my head. It felt like maybe once you start seeing this 50%, you feel like you have a significant lead, and if you at least push this long, you should have this. Which is why I start doing everything I can just to defend, but it's definitely feeling like a mistake in hindsight. Because he has a lot of cash, he is even with me on HQ level, he had picked up this tile from auctions, he has picked up slant drilling from auctions, saving him a water tile relative to me. Although he probably didn't need a third water tile, unlike me.
The hacker array is finished. Time to change our passwords.
Yeah. The hacker array was something I think that was really looking at finishing the game quickly when by this point I really should have recognized that this was going to go long. Just poor play from me. What the heck? Why did I let that go for 7k? I must not have been paying attention. There's another auction I let go later for a claim auction for 12k, I think. Just another huge mistake. A lot of little things adding up to a pretty significant advantage for PB late. Yeah, this steel surplus is me being desperate to knock his cash down a bit. It doesn't even make all that much sense though, honestly, because once I start surplusing, then he just sells out all his steel and he's not really any worse off. Just a weird play. Yeah, at that point I see him buy his first share, I know he's gonna go into me, so I try to get into myself before he starts pushing, but a little slow in that first buy. I forget what I'm building here. Oh, right, I'm putting down electronics here. I changed my mind because aluminum's so expensive. I forget what I decide on eventually. Probably would have been a good idea at some point to get into more power, because that is something that I wasn't really getting enough of, and PB had a fair amount of power down. I should have recognized that failing to take advantage of power was going to give him a route back into things. But I think at this point I was still just too concerned that I wasn't scraping enough money together. I didn't want to put down power because that might leave me open to being killed off. Still just a very weird sequence. Here I start the aluminum hack, I buy up aluminum, force this transition, and once it starts rolling in, I cancel the hack and move into something else because it doesn't feel like it makes a ton of sense to keep pushing. Though there definitely was a way to keep doing it, just blow up this mine. By the time the hack goes off, it still doesn't get into any aluminum. So this just feels like a bit of another mistake. This is a shortage I could have profited from, but just didn't. I haven't been doing anything with Black Market at this point, and I'm not sure why, quite honestly. So there are a lot of things I could be doing. Hologram auction I just didn't care at all about because I knew I could spot it fairly easily. No reason to pay for it. Again, I let him get back to things on power, and too many mistakes. Here I scrapped out a glass thinking I could push into the off-world. I could not yet, so I had to put the glass back down. Fun times. Also, these hacks go on for a while, and it takes me a long time to notice I have this iron available. Another little mistake there. It's worth considering whether I should have picked up these tiles at some point, just as a way to have that easy iron and aluminum access.
Prepare for pending market adjustments. The black market is online.
Yeah, I end up having to cancel this off-world because I get too concerned about him finishing this buy on me. I'm making very little money on everything, so I think it's reasonable for me to have cancelled, but at the same time, if we look here, PB still needs around 40k to finish that, and, well, I'm significantly closer to defending myself. So that might have been another mistake. I probably didn't need to cancel there. But it felt like a gamble that wasn't worth taking, so there you go. And yeah, surplus goes through, iron's already dead. I don't take advantage of that at all. Another mistake on my part. I think I had meant to... I'm not sure if that was the... I think that was the surplus where I meant to turn off my hacker array until this shortage was about to go off and then just time it like that. I split my attention quite a lot trying to deal with those sorts of things, and I just never was able to follow through. So I still haven't actually gotten my recording for my perspective up. And I think this was definitely a case where me trying to talk while playing was hurting me quite substantially. Which is a weak excuse, but I think it was a real thing. At this point, I don't think I can afford to be doing that sort of commentary during tournaments anymore. I just don't have enough of an edge on players. That's okay though. And yeah, me failing that to leverage that surplus in any way whatsoever really opens up this door. Big mistake. Big mistake. Other big mistakes? When I start popping these goons. That's gonna happen shortly. Again, when you are not thinking machines up against thinking machines, don't start throwing things around, because it's not going to end well for you. The same thing's also true if you're the only one with an off-world and your opponent doesn't. If you're starting to pop goons, then you're just opening yourself up and you have very little to gain from it. Don't start black market wars out of reflex, it doesn't make sense ever. At this point I would have been better off picking up a boost, picking up another goon squad, anything really. Also, I'm not launching. There we go. Carbon scrubbing makes no sense to me, but whatever. Teleportation was probably a good pickup for him, but... eh. At this point, I still have a lead, and I really should have been able to finish things based off of this lead, but I just wasn't. It's slow to make these sorts of transitions out of carbon into something like glass again. Probably getting out of electronics into reactors would have been good. Just a lot of things I could have done better. Instead, I kind of stagnate and just let myself die. This was the worst thing ever. Terrible.
Off-world shipment launched. Look at all the money. Your stock is being sold.
Anyway, no, there's not much more to dwell on for this game. I probably shouldn't have been buying into PB. I should have been moving into a second off-world sooner. That's okay, I get into it pretty quickly anyway. And yeah, he starts using boost before me, which is just inexcusable. I had the goon squads down, I had the off-world up first, I should have been able to start that. I just didn't. Complete failure on my part. Other mistakes? Well, at this point, off-world too expensive to really effectively redefend. It's pretty cheap to rebuild, so it doesn't even make sense to drop that goon. I'm pretty happy. Oops. I'm pretty happy dropping that boost, letting the second one get blown up. It's fine with me. I couldn't defend it anyway, so might as well get that benefit going. But the key thing for me to realize at this point is that because I'm going to be running on this off-world that is undefended, then it no longer matters that my opponent has thinking machines. Since I'm going to have that one off-world defended anyway, I should start hammering through myself, start dropping my own dynamites. There is one argument against that, that is that opens me up to EMPs, but EMPs are, well, not that expensive for PB. They are real expensive for me, though. I don't know, definitely feels like another mistake there. Eventually I do drop my goon, network viruses, pop both those and start blowing them up and stuff, but there is something to be said. I blew up this one first, which was just a huge mistake. Obviously you hit the not thinking machines one. Anyway, just too many mistakes. Late move into the late game, not recognizing cook the books, allowing my opponent to get out of debt. Just so many errors piling up to produce that loss, because I did have a substantial lead. I did have very nice territory, and there's no reason why I should have lost that. Anyway. Alright, so this map. There actually isn't much to say about this game. It can pretty much be summarized by saying that I just missed a lot of stuff. So really what I was looking at this game was this power colony with double power price. So I wanted some way to think about getting to that. This scientific found looks very nice and was something to really think about, but I dismissed it pretty quickly for several reasons. One was because I did not notice any of this carbon next to it, which is a big deal. This carbon means that this power colony isn't such a big deal. You can easily move into your wind turbines. But I didn't notice that. The other thing I didn't notice, these two aluminum tiles. Instead, I noticed, oh, high and medium aluminum are together in this patch. Oh, most of the low aluminum also in this patch. Let us found right here. We'll have control of aluminum. Not so much. Yeah, the single biggest thing is this found. There's no reason to ever take this found first. There's no reason to take it for any amount of debt. If PB founds first over here, then I think this is excusable. This gets off to a pretty quick start. It forces PB into this double aluminum, which if he's taking the first found really makes things a bit more awkward for him. But since he takes the second found, taking that second aluminum really just isn't a big deal. He manages to go double aluminum, double steel, double water, single carbon, and he's just fine. If he does not have that extra claim, well, I don't know if he even founds there. If he does, I just don't know how this plays out otherwise. Other things I should be very concerned about. Grabbing water quite this early when I get to HQ2. I honestly don't know why I moved into the water. I have the 3 claims to work with. I know I can't move into iron again. That's just not an option. I know that I kind of made a mistake here, placing these 2 steel mills like I did. Reasonably, I should have put them somewhere else, like down here or something. I wanted to block off all this aluminum. I knew I wasn't going to be claiming more than 1 aluminum tile for use, but there's still just no reason for that. Because these tiles are still protected. Even if I were actually protecting an aluminum monopoly, this was completely unnecessary. It blocks me out of my good aluminum right now and just makes life really awkward for me. I forget how I actually deal with it. Yeah, I end up making that transition, connecting up tiles to make me more vulnerable. Just terrible. This silicon, perfectly fine. That's pretty much the key to what I'm doing here. This water, inexcusable. It does help me later. It allows me to move into this food, into reactors, but
A scientific HQ has been upgraded.
I think this ends up hurting me more than it helps. Just because without it, I'm allowed to actually move into power right away. Like, if I had played this out correctly, even with the far inferior found that I should never have taken, what I could have done, I could have had the 2 steel mills down here, could have moved into a 2 aluminum up here, could have had this silicon, and then I would have been just fine. Once I start pulling in enough silicon to actually do stuff, I can transition out of the aluminum into power pretty easily. And I'm not really in danger for the upgrade anyway. I can push to my electronics reasonably easily, and then things just work out okay. Even after this iron nuke that comes down, which is another reason not to take this found, and also a reason why I should have taken this iron instead, quite frankly. Even after that iron nuke comes down, I would have had options.
Is online.
Other mistakes. There's going to be a carbon surplus soon that I just completely make a mess out of. There's no reason for me to buy into that carbon surplus, but I do. And that was just weird and unnecessary and unexplainable. Takes me a while to actually react to that iron nuke. It's kind of the idea. Multiple ideas. One, I didn't really pull in that much silicon yet, so I couldn't actually finish the solar panel transition. The other, I guess maybe I was thinking I could finish the push to the next HQ sooner than I did. Also, at this point, I haven't attacked PB at all. One thing I might have considered would have been nuking out his carbon. Really making his move into power more difficult. That was something I recognized was going to be a thing, and nuking this out would have been a good move relative to doing nothing. Better move, grabbing a goon. Especially since, well, in hindsight, I know that carbon nuke would not have worked out at all because of this coming carbon, or because of the carbon surplus that happened. Also, this whole time, it's just really hopeless to think that I was going to hold back PB in any significant manner from reaching HQ3 and moving into power, because there's just so much money in food, because glass is so cheap. Those were reasons why this spot was so much stronger than I was thinking at first. Just terrible. Also, should not have let this go for quite this cheap. It opens up another path for PB into power. He's already at a pretty significant advantage over me. Letting him take that without me having a clear path to destroy power is just bad. There's no other way to put it. Also, this carbon shortage is just disgusting. This game hates me. But it kind of deserves to hate me after how poorly I played this out, so what can you do? And at this point, this game's over. Very little else to talk about. One thing to talk about, I guess, is me buying the second circuit overload. I had known that PB had gooned this middle turbine. So the second circuit overload was never going to get very much done. Even... Right. The goon just would have been so much better. But even ignoring that... Also, I dropped the circuit overload too early. It ends up being that I pretty much had to drop it at that time anyway, since PB picks up Goon Squad pretty quickly after. But he did have the option of canceling out of two of these, moving into the wind on the aluminum sooner. Not a mistake that hurts me this game, but one that is a real mistake. Again, second circuit overload should have landed here. So I knew this was here. There's no excuse. I just pretty much forgot that this existed. But more importantly, Goon Squad. Should have been Goon Squad. And at this point, PB just has too much power online, and I am not going to be able to push through quite well enough. PB does briefly dip into a D pretty soon, but then he just was able to make so much money off of food. Food is doing well this game, starting that double price, and I couldn't effectively contest for a while, and that just led to all sorts of problems. Other thing to think about, if I had taken this as the second found, then then this water still could have happened. It wouldn't have been a mistake. I would have been able to have the option to go either power or food with the split pairing I was talking about earlier. And that's why second found would have been so important. You can't survive on this few claims. Everything ends up clustered. It's bad. Don't found first. Unless you're going to be moving so quickly. Anyway, yeah, this game's over at this point. No point talking about it more.